see those holding girls in the front row.
You can't choose your fans, Danny.
Oh, no way! You don't surprise a guy my age. You give me a heart attack.
Do you remember doing an interview when you were a kid, Chime magazine?
You write like Lennon, man.
John Lennon read it, and he wrote you a letter in 1971. Can you believe it? Dear Danny Collins, stay true to yourself. Stay true to your music. My phone number is below. We can discuss this. I'm a joke. I haven't written a song in 30 years. You're having a breakdown. I'm broken. Ain't nothing left to break. What would have happened if I got that letter when I was supposed to? I want to cancel the rest of the tour.
I need a plane. Jersey.
Oh, welcome to the Hilton.
Look who it is. I see. So you're staying indefinitely here? Are you on drugs?
Currently or in general?
Currently.
No. Dinner?
You're asking me to dinner?
I think so.
I'm gonna have to decline.
You're not a fan?
Currently or in general?
In general.
No.
But we have good patter.
Why New Jersey?
I'm meeting someone for the first time. How do I look?
Well, you look slightly ridiculous.
Nah. See you at 7.
No, you won't. You'd expect it to be easy meeting your grown son for the first time.
Hello.
Hello.
Why are you here?
I'm just making some changes in my life.
In a few minutes, my husband's gonna walk through that door, and this will be the last time I ever see you.
We have every right to be angry.
I don't care enough to be angry, okay? Nice to meet you. Have a good life.
Family can be messy, but you shouldn't give up.
I agree. Dinner tomorrow?
Good night, Danny.
I haven't written anything in a long time.
You're nervous.
Yes.
I love that.
You know, I've spent my entire life trying to become the man that you aren't.
I don't know what to say.
I don't need you to say anything, man. I just need you to leave.
You're gonna have to deal with it because I'm here. You can't buy redemption.
Dinner tomorrow?
You know what I like about you? You never give up.
Some dinners are worth fighting for.
Exciting. This is a really great movie, so I'm super excited to talk to you about it.
Thanks.
The first thing is, let's talk about the inspiration for this film. Can you explain a little bit about the John Lennon letter?
Yeah, it was about 5 years ago. Do I talk to you guys or you? You tell me where to look. I'm going to talk to everyone.
The world.
It was about 5 years ago, and I was procrastinating from work. I was on the internet and just kind of killing time, and I came across this weird news story of a guy named Steve Tilston, who had done an interview in the early 70s as a musician, a young man, 18, 19 years old, where he expressed fear about becoming a rich, famous musician and how it might corrupt his art. And you cut to 40 years later, he was in his 60s, and he essentially got a knock at the door that John Lennon back in 1970 had read that interview and written him a handwritten letter.
Can you imagine?
Advising him. And
oh, by the way, Lennon wrote you.
Yeah, and he put
40 years ago.
And he put his home phone number on it, and he said, you know, money and fame don't have to corrupt your art. Stay true to who you are. And the guy didn't get it until he was in his 60s, and so that became the inspiration for the whole movie.
And so what happens is Pacino gets in the movie. Pacino's that guy, and he gets the letter after 40 years and reevaluates his life because he's kind of a, how do I say this politely, has been a pop star, has been singing the same hit song now since then, basically.
Yeah, and he became everything that he worried about becoming, a kind of packaged performer. And not a songwriter, and really a simple songwriter, which is what he really wanted to be. And so that's kind of the what if only I'd gotten the letter.
It's a great performance, but you know the big story here, and I'm not just saying this because you're sitting in front of me.
Of course that's where you're saying it.
No, honestly, I'm not the type. I would have talked around it. But what I was going to say is that Bobby Cannavale here plays Pacino's son, and he's like the one person in the world who doesn't buy his act. Because, do you want to explain why?
Well, yeah, I because I've never met him before, and I know he's my father, and he's never reached out before. And in this story, he had a one-night stand with my mom, and my mom passed away, and he never reached out, and so I've sort of built my own family. I've very much built my own family with Jennifer Garner and Giselle Eisenberg, my daughter. We have another one on the way, and he's sort of lived his whole life trying to become a great dad, the dad his dad never was, really. And now he's got a secret that he's been holding from the family. He's got this illness, and that's when Al's character, Danny, shows up sort of insistently in this huge tour bus in front of my house in New Jersey. And he won't go away. And so the story then becomes about how he lets him back into his life just a little bit.
And they're wonderful together, Bobby and Al. I mean, it's...
Well, what's interesting is that it's
I am saying that because he's sitting here.
No, you really are. And what the thing is that it's a very hard tone to achieve. Like if you gave in too easily to him, if you were too gruff, the movie would be impossible to watch and there'd be nothing for us to hang on to. But if you give in too easily, then it's too sentimental. So how did you guys prepare for this? Did you rehearse a lot together?
We did rehearse at Al's house.
At Al's house.
Yeah, I should say that, like,
that's awesome.
Those concerns, they're legitimate concerns. I think that's what the script sort of rides right on the edge. And the key really is having good actors, and with
and a good script
with this group. I think that was sort of important that we had a cast that wouldn't play the obvious, let's say, and would sort of be on the edge there and sort of always have you questioning, that nothing was too easy for these characters. And sure, we talked about that a lot. Al and I did. Al and I had done a play right before this movie, and we got really close while we were doing this play.
What play did you guys do?
We did Glengarry Glen Ross here in New York on Broadway. And
wow.
Thanks. And so over the course of those 4 months, we really just developed a really nice friendship and discovered that we had a lot in common. Both our families weren't artistic, sort of both come from this blue collar upbringing, and so the conversation that was happening during those 4 months really paralleled some of the themes in this movie, and family and patrimony and all those things. And so timing sometimes is just serendipitous, isn't it? And so the movie came up right after we got done with this play. So the conversation was ongoing, and it really paralleled. And we would rehearse in the back of Al's, his backyard there, and drink 15 espressos. We'd watch Al drink 15 espressos.
Is that what you guys did?
And he roasts himself in the sun. I mean, it's like you're in Al's backyard. We go there on the weekends during the shoot, right?
Yeah.
So you're working all the time, and Al is just like, it's like 95 degrees out in Los Angeles.
And he's not in the shade.
He's out like this. Like,
in a black suit.
In a black suit. and Christopher Plummer and Annette Bening and myself and Bobby are sitting in the backyard. I've got sweat dripping down. And Al is cool as a cucumber.
Cool as a cucumber in the back in the heat, just talking about it. The beautiful thing about Al is really, I've never met an actor who is so unconcerned with results. It's a really beautiful thing. He's just interested in the process. Al would rehearse something for a year and never show it to anybody and be very happy with it. And so the goal is never to come to some sort of conclusion of a result of what we want to show. It's just about sort of creating an inner life that's active, so that when you're working, the beautiful thing about Al, I think that everybody can agree with, is he's just compelling to watch. He has been for years. You look in his eyes, and it's not that his eyes are beautiful to look at because of the color or the shape. It's because he's got so much going on.
They're soulful.
He's got so much going on. He's got a really active inner life, and that's really what he's after, is just, he wants you to, it's the thing of like, why do we lean forward and want to know what that person's going through? And that's the process for Al, and it's really a beautiful thing. And
Did you guys improv a lot of this? I mean, I don't know if everyone knows this, but Dan, this may be your directorial debut, but he's written some amazing movies: Crazy Stupid Love, Tangled, Cars.
Fred Claus.
Yeah.
Las Vegas.
So, I mean, how much of this is improv? The script itself must have been...
It's a pretty heavily scripted piece. It's very dialogue heavy. I mean, it is, but I'm very flexible. I think like Bobby says, the movie rides a line. It unabashedly wears its heart on its sleeve, and in order to make a very scripted version of that kind of movie work, it needs to feel natural, and the actors need to not only be great, but they need to have the freedom to say things the way they feel that character would say them without. And so I don't know if you'd call it improv as much as flexibility. And then there's some stuff like a couple of scenes where you're trying to capture. Bobby and Jen have a scene in the backyard with the little girl.
Let's talk about that scene.
Yeah.
That scene's really one of the most affecting scenes in the whole movie.
Well, because we wanted them to feel like a family, and so that was a lot more free-flowing, that scene, than other stuff in the movie, because you wanted them to feel like they were finally becoming this probably makes no sense to
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's
it.
explain the context.
Well, it's Al's kind of shown back up as an estranged father into this family's lives, and Bobby particularly is not eager to welcome him and make it easy on him. And so there's a bit of a journey that has to be undergone, and towards the middle of the journey, it starts becoming a little bit more comfortable, and Al starts becoming a member of the family a little bit. And you start feeling that kind of chemistry, how they're forming as a unit. Families have their own shorthands. Like my best friend, Bobby and Jen are so good together in this movie.
So good, seriously.
And the little
this
girl,
is Jennifer Garner's strongest performance,
I
possibly.
agree.
She's awesome in this.
Yeah, and Jen's so likable. I think sometimes like you can overlook. She's a really good actress.
She's a strong actress.
And her and Bobby are just so winning together with this little girl, and it reminds me of my best friend's family. They've got two little girls, and they're always like on top of each other around the couch or on the TV. There's a lot of like intertwined limbs, and there's a lot of love, and it's like you feel that in their home in this movie, in their life, and it's the home that Pacino's character is completely unused to and has to kind of learn how to fit in that world. So even in the scene we're talking about, where they're all playing in one of those inflatable pools in the backyard, Al's still wearing like a zoot suit, and like
Totally.
And he's on the outside of the circle,
Yeah.
really. He's on the other
Right.
side there. Yeah.
One of the things that strikes me about all of the projects that you've worked on, and what makes them slightly unfashionable but very successful, actually, is that they wear their heart on their sleeves. Like, we're in this cultural moment where everybody's a little bit cynical, and your movies, they're not sentimental. Crazy Stupid Love isn't sentimental, but it is a very emotional film.
Well, I think it's what I like, and it doesn't. I've been talking about it a lot as we're launching this particular film, which I'm incredibly proud of. But it's not a cool currency necessarily to tread where I like to tread.
No, it's not that cool. It's just awesome.
It's the movies I loved growing up. I don't know how you define them, but we're not making them as much anymore. These kind of commercially accessible movie star movies that you can see in a lot of theaters in your city, but that are also the good versions of them, and they don't have to, when we do what we have to do for a living, I have to go to see all the movies at the end of the year, the Oscar-worthy movies, and as a filmmaker, I admire them all. Some I love, some I don't like, but it's kind of a depressing, upsetting slog to make it through all those movies.
Well, there's grim. There's a lot of grim movies that come out these
They're just
days.
not willing to kind of, a lot of them are, it's not as cool in our currency, it's not as rewarded, so I like that. I like trying to find that line of, like Bobby said, like where can you push it to? If you can make, Terms of Endearment was a touchstone movie for me, because you would watch that movie and you would laugh, and Jack Nicholson was as movie star romantic anti-hero as you get. But the end of that movie, when my mom used to watch it, she would cry so hard that my sister and I used to videotape her watching it because we thought it was funny. And I was like, but for me, if you can do that in 2 hours in a movie theater, where you can make somebody laugh, and we get big laughs in this film, but it's not a comedy, and then you can make somebody feel and get a kind of tear in their eye, and then like, life is hard, and if I go to a movie theater, I'd like to come out 2 hours later feeling better than I did when I walked into the movie theater, and I think this movie does that.
That's one of the jobs that films used to fill, the unmanipulative tearjerker. Let's say that. That's what you make.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. This one particular, Bobby and Al have a final scene in this movie, and I don't know where my career goes, if I ever get to make another movie again or not, but to me, it's the best acting, and Al loves Bobby. To me, it's like the best acting in that scene between those two that I've seen in a very long time.
Well, there's a lot of things that come together. It's deft, right? I mean, basically, without revealing anything, there's a huge question mark that's hanging over everyone's head right up until about the last 10 seconds of the film. Yeah. And it relies really strong, subtle acting, and it also requires writing that pushes us right to that edge of sentimentality without making us roll our eyes. And y'all pulled it off. It was
thank you.
wonderful.
They did. I didn't do very much. I put a camera there on a 2-shot of Bobby and Al Pacino, and then they acted. That's directing.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good, Pacino and Cannavale in a room.
Yeah.
Are there questions that people want to ask?
No question.
Besides... Will you marry me?
There's a question, a brave young man.
Hi, I'm a fellow actor as well, and I mainly do independent films, but I've been noticing, at least lately, that in the indie scene, there's a lot of films that have really dark themes in combination with very light situations. I'm curious, like, what do you guys think about that? I think it's great that
What's
it's
an
kind of
example of a movie like that? Just to understand your point.
There's this film that I saw recently. It's about this man and this girl and their brother and sister. And well, it's actually a film that I worked on, so it's not out yet. But
Okay.
And it's very it's because the girl is so innocent, and you have her going into this really intense situation where she has to live with somebody who she has never met in her entire life. And that innocence in combination with the darkness of the theme and the situation it's very fascinating, I think. And I've been seeing that, I think, too, a lot in the independent scene. And I don't know.
Yeah,
what do you
I
guys think about?
think in this film we try, and I mean it's heavy subject matter. It's a guy, as Al at the outset of the film when he's in his musical life, Al always said he thinks this guy's like a step from putting a gun in his mouth kind of guy, and Bobby's character is dealing with intensive stuff and intensely dark feelings towards this man who is his father but has never been a father. So, but then hopefully you can put on the touch on it that makes it still fun to watch without it being too hard to watch, and that can make you laugh but still feel. And so that's the job of films that I think live in this area.
One of the ways you did this was this casting. I mean, this is an incredible cast. Christopher Plummer, like Annette Bening, like Jennifer Garner. Besides you and Pacino, like how did you pull together this cast? Given the fact that, and I say this respectfully, they didn't have very huge roles.
Right, and I was a first-time director, best known for writing like a talking car movie. You know what I mean? So. Yeah.
So how did that happen?
Well, Fred Claus.
I was like, I got to get him.
I like your Pacino imitation, man.
We've got Pacino impressions for days. Well, Al signed on first. I wrote it for Al. I sent it to Al. I was summoned to New York. He was doing Merchant on Broadway. And it was the only time I was really ever nervous around Al because I'd never met him before. I'd written a screenplay for him. You never think you're going to get Al Pacino. And
right, you're like, I want Al Pacino to star in this.
Yeah,
it's like
it was actually a ridiculously stupid thing of me to picture him in my brain because then it was only going to lead till disappointment. And then you go there and you're waiting for the show, and he's amazing. I mean, he's playing Shylock, and he's spilling his guts out all over the place. And then it's like, Mr. Pacino will see you after the show in his dressing room. And you're like, it's the most terrifying moment of your life. I remember I was walking in, and Richard Gere was walking out of his dressing room. And he did a double take on my now fiance too. It was like, I was like, Richard Gere, just check you out. And they're like, Mr. Pacino, I'll see you now. And I went in and he was like, you wrote this for me. I can tell you wrote this for me. And I said, I did. And it started like a long courtship. But anyway, once you get Al, the script reads differently to the other people. If Al's giving you his blessing, I mean, Al called Bobby directly, Annette and Chris and Jen, I sent them the script, but also saying, Al and I would like you to come join us. And like, I'm no idiot.
I mean, I've never seen Christopher Plummer in a role like this before. He's very funny. He usually plays like the courtly gentleman, but he's much more of a rapscallion here.
Yeah, I think Annette Bening is incredible in this movie. Like, Annette she's very picky about what she does, and she doesn't work that much by choice. Yeah. And I just never dreamed that Annette Bening and Al Pacino would be like the Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber of their generation or whatever. They're like, you feel like you're watching something you shouldn't. It's so, their chemistry's amazing.
It's like
and
1940s
funny.
Screwball. Like they really have a lot of banter.
And you want to see them get together. It's really, it's astounding. They're both so good and they both ride the edge again. Like, none of them go for the obvious, and yet you just want them to get together. That really took me aback. I was so delighted by that relationship.
Yeah, they're really good together in it, and they were very free-flowing and loose with the improv and stuff. That was an area where we did a lot of improvisation.
It was.
Yeah,
she's so funny.
We let her start a lot of scenes and do them again.
I'm hogging you guys. There's another question.
Hi, just for shits and giggles, can you guys do like an Al Pacino impression?
Well, Bobby cheats because Bobby's are always like one or two words, so it's not even an impression.
We need to see it. We need that.
Relax.
That's all.
That's it.
That's all about it.
That's really the key. You don't want to do.
You don't want to do
the
too
whole line.
much, right?
They're just sounds.
And he also, you got to be careful with it too, because like Al was like, I was like, Al, come do this show or something. He's like, no, they did a bad impression of me once. Like he did, and he was like, he remembered it. He doesn't
like the impressions.
No, I think he does. I mean, we're not doing the thing about Al. The danger of the Al impression is the thing of the hoo-ha and all of it. Al's such a gifted actor who can do absolutely anything. He's so quiet in this movie that it's so quiet that's like the impression almost at a certain point becomes almost unfair because it's not. But when Bobby and I do it, it's more this. It's the down part that you get when you really hang out.
Well, in this weird way, the movie's very meta, I think, because, over the last 10 to 15 years, people identify Pacino more with his shtick than that restrained capacity he has that you saw, especially in the early part of his career. And the movie itself, in a way, is about an actor trying to transcend the shtick he's associated, or a performer that's trying to transcend the shtick he's associated with. Do you think that was part of his attraction to it?
I mean, I think this role, I think for Al gets to flex every muscle. He's kind of acting his ass off in really, really heavyweight New York stage acting chops kind of stuff. But it's also allows him to show off the charisma and the sense of humor and the quote unquote movie star quality that a person just has or doesn't have. Yeah. And so, because normally it's one or the other. It's either a big movie star role or it's an actor's piece. And I think Al turned this into a little bit of all of it. Yeah.
Other questions?
Switching gears a little bit, but thinking about social media, Bobby, I know you are really funny and honest on Twitter specifically. Just curious, how do you, some celebrities shy away from social media. How do you approach it, and has it sort of changed how you interact with fans?
I really treat Twitter like as just something that I just have fun with when I want to. I don't really have any rules about it, and it's very possible I could get in trouble for something I say on there, but I don't think about it too much. And if I'm in the mood, when I tweet a lot, I've usually had a few drinks, and I'm watching, the Oscars or something, and I'm just saying what I'm thinking in my head.
But it actually is what makes Bobby. I think it's part of what makes him so interesting. Is like, as an actor, there's no artifice. It's so real especially in this film and films like it, that he doesn't give a shit what he's gonna say on Twitter. Whereas I always I have my 100 followers on Twitter, and I'll write out my witty little biting comment, and I'm like, no, that's gonna make somebody upset, I can't do it. Bobby's stripped down. He can do these interviews in this weird part of this process, and he's very much himself. And I think that comes with success that he's having now, coming at the right time and age, and just comes with who he is.
I think it does probably have something to do with my age. I mean,
you're
I'm not
100
old.
or
Well, I'm 40. I'll be 45 in May, but my son's going to be 20 in May, and I'm just like, life's too short. I'm just going to say what I want and do what I want, and fuck them if they can't take a joke.
You've heard it here. Other questions? Hey.
So it sounds like a big theme of this movie is selling out and what happens if you sell out, trying not to sell out, kind of the repercussions. So how have you been able to maintain your integrity in this business?
Question.
Well, all I ever really wanted to be was a New York actor. I grew up in Union City, New Jersey, which is right across the Lincoln Tunnel there. It's Hoboken, Union City. So I grew up with the city outside my window. And I was obsessed with the theater as a kid, and all I ever wanted to do was move to the city and just do plays, and everything that happened after that just happened, and so I never really was a planner, I just went to open calls, and I really loved being around the theater. So I was like an audition reader and I was an understudy, and then things just started happening. And then I had a kid very young. And so a lot of my friends were like moving to LA for pilot season, and that just definitely didn't become an option once I had a kid because I didn't want to leave them. So I just, as long as I could I was always doing plays. I wasn't getting paid to do them, but then I would do a play and then I'd go to work as a bouncer in a bar. And I was happy. And it was just my life, because really the most important thing was that I got to live in the greatest city in the world. So I think for me, that was just the simplest thing, like being where I really want to live. The biggest achievement of my life is being able to live in New York City, more than the career, really.
How about you?
It's a hard question.
It's a hard question for Dan to answer because he has sold out.
Pixar, baby, Pixar.
But it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing. So true.
Dan, when did you first sell out?
I sold out when I was 14 years old. The weird part about the funny part about the thing and the theme in the movie and what we do for a living that is so bizarre, and we're in this weird stage right now where like the reviews of the movie are coming out, and I hate the part of myself that cares, but I do a little bit, and they're turning positive in our direction, and it's feeling good generally speaking. But the judgment on art and the position we're in is like nobody goes to their regular job and like takes a meeting they didn't really want to take. It's like publicly, like, you sold out by taking that meeting, right? Like, you came into work early today, you sell out, but like, we're in a business where like a movie doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to turn out, or you take a job because it paid a little bit more than a job that didn't pay more. And like, there's articles written about it and reviews. And if you're a famous actor, not really me, but like a famous actor, like that's commented upon. And I'm kind of hard pressed to think of anything besides when art meets commerce that judges our careers the same way. So I just find it interesting, especially.
But that's always been the movie industry too.
Yeah.
I mean, they call it the business.
The business.
It's the most American thing you can do: combine art and commerce and hope for the best. Right.
Right. Yeah.
You just got to not care.
Yeah, I mean,
about that stuff.
by the way,
That's
I'm going to
just
write a
noise.
review of your movie tonight.
Yeah, but you have to learn to not care. And like, this movie has been a learning experience for me. Of just like, I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of every frame of it. And so I'm kind of like, I'm more in Cannavale territory. Like, I don't give a shit. I know what happens when people see the movie, and I'm proud of it. So,
are there other questions?
We have time for one more.
Well, one thing I want to know is, I mean, this was your directorial debut, and it was really beautiful. Are you going to make more movies or go back to screenwriting mostly?
I mean, I'm a writer first. I mean, I imagine I'll direct more when I write it. I don't imagine ever loving. I'm not the type of guy that would direct a movie that he didn't write, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I think I will do more. I enjoyed the process. It's great when you get like the 5 names on your movie poster happen to be nice people. It makes the process more pleasant. So.
Next time you'll work with all jerks.
What's that?
Next time maybe you'll work with all jerks. You'll lose your taste for it.
It'll be done.
Are we cool?
I'm sorry, I have one last question, one for both of you guys. As far as this is like in general, and also with this project in particular, directing and writing, what was the most difficult part about this project and in general? And then as far as acting goes, for Bobby, I'm curious to think what you feel are the most precious moments in this film as well as in acting in general.
The most difficult moment is kind of everything when you're a first-time director. It's a really, really hard job. It's a lot of pressure. You're in charge of answering every question. It's like running a huge corporation, but you've never actually done it before, and you've just been made the CEO. And so like you have to learn on the fly. And the biggest thing you do is just fake it. Like, people come up and they say, always answer a question determined and with immediacy, and then go back to your room and think about it, and you can change the answer later, but don't hesitate. So people come up, they're like, how many cups do you want on the table? 7. I just say 7. and then if I change my mind and I want 100 the next day, I go back into one and go, I was thinking about it, but like, that's part of it, is faking it until you know it, and then once you know it, being confident enough to change it because you were wrong. And so it's a very difficult thing. It's a fun challenge. So that's the biggest hard part.
I just watched you the entire time and didn't hear anything you said.
I know. I could tell. I made a joke.
Sorry.
I made a joke, and I was proud of.
That got me out, and I was like, "Shh!" I didn't hear.
I was proud of my joke, and I looked to Bobby for approval, and he was like staring at me blankly.
That was your directorial. That's how you're a directorial writer. I mean, actor relationship.
Bobby, you need to do it again, but you need to do it like move over here, and he's just staring.
He'd
at me
be like,
blankly.
"What? I didn't hear you're so pretty."
He doesn't give a shit about anything. That's the thing you need to know about Bobby.
You heard it here.
I suppose you know one thing that people like don't really realize about this work is that you go to work and you're going to work and there's like at least 50 people at work. People like they see the movie and they're like, oh my God, Pacino and Cannavale, that must have been an amazing day. It must have been an amazing project. But like I find that what's really a negotiation and that I enjoy is the negotiation between concentration and sociability. Because, like I go to work and I'm fully aware that there's 100 people or 75 people, or if it's a low budget, 30 people who are there because, they could be doing anything else. But I always assume that everybody's there because they want to make something great. I always assume that. And there are cynical people who will tell you, bullshit. It's just a way to make money. But I just refuse to believe that. And that makes me excited to go to work every day. But every day it's a negotiation because I do have to have concentration and focus and balance the two. And I find that keeps me very exhilarated because it's, actors, I'm a kind of actor, I like to be around people. People are fascinating to me. People are like the source of all of my material. And I live in a city where I'm surrounded by 9 million people, and I love that. That's the only place I want to live. And so I find that to be the greatest challenge and the most exhilarating, precious challenge really is that balance going into work every day.
That's probably why we like watching your work so much, because you're interested in other people, actually. You pick up on it.
All right.
I'm into it.
Thanks.
I'm into it. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about this movie. And thank you for the movie, honestly. It's great. Make sure you see it. And thank you so much for participating today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.